Bitcoin has never looked as bullish as it is looking right now, as we are still extremely cheap from the Bitcoin price compared to like 1 year ago, and we are basically flat when you look back a couple of years ago. But we had massive developments in Bitcoin happening the last couple of weeks, months, and even years. So today I'm talking with Brandon Gentile about the amazing setup that we currently have in Bitcoin, and also about the impact that AI will have on the world, that Bitcoin will have on the world, and what the combination between those two amazing technologies can bring. Enjoy.
I mean, yeah, honestly, like I've been really, some of the coolest talks, I think were like some of the AI and Bitcoin stuff in Vegas, honestly, like some of the, the local models. I was just telling you offline, like I'm building some stuff like outside of Bitcoin, but what you can do with Claude, and just these different AI models is unbelievable. But then you really get to thinking of like privacy. If you're getting into medical records, like all these things, you start getting into, down these, but what you can build, it got me thinking too with like Bitcoin nodes, right? Like a Start9, Umbrel, these personal servers, having local LLMs on these things. Like, I just can't see how these aren't going to be really big going forward. And what a cool way to get more Bitcoin nodes out there into people's hands, where, because like the project I'm working on is, attorney stuff, there's medical records going on, all this stuff. And it's like, well, yeah, if you had a local model on a Bitcoin server, Bitcoin node, a private server or something like that, you could start doing this stuff completely private, completely confidential. And it's just like all the things we've been talking about for years with Bitcoin and AI, how these things would link up, and like, here we are, like we're down this road, and we're really getting into this place where people are going to start waking up to, whether it's the mining, the energy with Bitcoin, accounting for everything in the world with Bitcoin. I mean, just you name it, the Strait of Hormuz, the things going on there, the local LLMs versus the centralized LLMs. And there's so many things that are going on right now that, they all just point towards Bitcoin, and I couldn't be more bullish. And I might have said this in one of our chats, our BTC mastermind chats, or like a month ago, but this is the most bullish I've ever been about Bitcoin. Just in the almost 10 years I've been in Bitcoin, this is just everything that's going on. Like you said, like, the US government talking about Bitcoin and basically showing game theory. Like they're like, yeah, we're running a node. Like we have to, because what's happening of Iran doing payments in Bitcoin. Well, what does that mean? Well, now the people that are against Iran have to see what's going on. They have to make sure they're monitoring the Bitcoin, the blockchain, the time chain, like all these things that are happening. I mean, and then like you said, we're talking about the AI, the different developments inside of Bitcoin itself. Michael Saylor's doing a stretch. Price action, we thought it was, everyone said it was dead, go down, touches, 59,000, and here we are back at 80,000, or whatever. And it's just like, oh, like people just waking up to like these illogical fantasies they've had for a long time. And now the software thesis, which is what I really think is playing out, abstract power versus real power. Here we are, like you can ignore it all you want. You can ignore reality. You can tell yourself these stories, but truth is truth, and truth is going to come for you. You can get it really far away from truth, and then you snap back, the rubber band snaps and smacks you back to truth. And this just like happens throughout all of human history. Go back to the Bible and people getting away from truth, getting away from God. And then here you go, boom, snaps back. There's a flood, raining down fire or whatever. And a lot of these are, some happened, maybe some didn't. They're stories, they're parables for life of like, hey, when you get far away from truth, you're going to get messed up. You're going to FAFO. You're going to F around. You're going to find out. And people are starting to find out, and they're going to find out a lot more going forward, Robin.
That was amazing already. Man, I want to talk a little bit, I didn't have it on my plan, but I want to talk with you about AI, because we just like touched on it, it just came up so naturally. I heard Saylor also talk about that, and that's how maybe it ties into Bitcoin so well. He talked about AI demonetizing human labor, and I think maybe he's also kind of betting on Bitcoin being the best dominant asset in the world. AIs, like humans, don't have work anymore. They need some way of getting paid. Kind of the idea of you need a car that drives to do the work, and cars to do the work. An AI, the car that drives you around, and an asset that pays you. I think Stretch also promotes itself like that. How do you think this all ties together? The thing that Michael Saylor is doing with strategy and Stretch, and the AI revolution at the same time, kind of demonetizing human labor and monetizing the potentially biggest asset in the world long term.
Yeah, I think it's inevitable. The scary part is the constant government overreach and the arson being the firefighter, and government trying to come in all the time. We see it with, some of the, I don't know if it's cognitive dissonance, but you have, Elon Musk saying, we're going to have massive human abundance, but then also saying we need universal basic income, universal high income, all this stuff. And those things aren't compatible. So I don't know what angle he's going on. I'm not going to pretend to mind read, but I mean, Saylor's spot on. This is inevitable, whether it's the AI taking people's, jobs, things of that nature. Now, I think the problem I have with a lot of this is that, not with Saylor necessarily, but it's just like broadly speaking is, and maybe government, maybe it's more pointed towards that, is this lack of faith that we have in humanity, where humans, we've gone through this a lot and we adapt. We're God's highest form of creation. We figure it out. It's going to be okay. And when you're left to your own devices, invention or necessity is the mother of all invention. So when times get tough or there's things are going on or you get constricted or you need something, guess what? You're going to figure it out. You band together, you find some community, because we don't have much of that anymore. We used to have a lot of community. We used to know people around us. We're love our neighbor. We don't even know our neighbor, so like, of course you can have love. Of course there's a ton of polarization. Of course. So you're going to find that out. And so the problem that I have is these things are coming. We used to use horses to do things, to plow the fields, and we used to use, our own hand tiller and things, stuff like that. Now we have machines doing it. Well, it's just scaling up, where we have more machines doing more work, robotics and 3D printing and AI. This is going to happen, but there's going to be a ton of jobs that are created from this. But then, is there going to be some gap in the middle there where people maybe aren't working for a while, whatever it might be? Yes, and that's the beauty of having Bitcoin. This is why Bitcoiners, we've been shouting for years. Many people, 17 years, 15 years, they've been talking, saying, hey, you're going to want to get some Bitcoin because these things are coming. So I have a lot of empathy because I love human beings and I want them. I don't want us to see us go into these hard times, but at the same time, my dad always said too, growing up, pain's a great teacher. It's like you have to have some type of feedback loop in life. You have to have some merit and accountability. So I can equally feel bad and just empathize with human beings that there might be some hard times coming. But at the same time, that's why I feel compelled to come on to Robin's show. I feel compelled to talk about Bitcoin because you do see some pain coming potentially, and you don't want that to happen to your neighbor, to your family members, to your friends. And so the big problem is the government trying to come in, this UBI, all these different things, and trying to paper over this bridge from the old world to the new world. And so, yes, obviously it would have been great if everyone got into Bitcoin 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Obviously, that's not the case. So what do? Well, when you have people that are necessities and mother of all invention looking around and saying, hey, Bitcoin or AI is taking my jobs or whatever, that would probably be a good time where that person's going to go to work. They're going to work in the sense of doing their research, getting up 6 different AI, speaking of AI, and then saying, hey, this is my problem, and copying and pasting it, putting it into 6 different AI models and seeing what answers they get. Maybe they're the same, maybe, and then each person's situation is going to be different, and finding, hey, maybe 1 or 2 of them mention Bitcoin. Maybe they say, hey, what's wrong? How come there's inflation? Like all these different things, doing some work to say, hey, where are we going from here? Where can I go? Where is there work I can have? Why are we having these problems? Why is the expenses keep going up in my life and there's seemingly no end to this game? And so government trying to paper over all of that learning, basically, because what do we do when we're feeding the zoo animals? They don't have to learn. They don't have to hunt. They don't have to do anything. And then your muscles atrophy, your brain atrophies, and it starts going away. And now you don't know how to protect yourself. You don't know how to take care of yourself. And that's unfortunately exactly what the government wants, generally speaking. I'm not one person, but governments themselves like that because they like the dependence of the people, because that means now they need us. The government has to grow, has to get bigger, has to suck in more taxes, it has to suck in more things from the people, which, newsflash, the money is not from the government. It's the people's, and the government takes that from the people by hook or by crook, one way or another. And so this whole process where there could be massive learning, like banks failing, Silicon Valley Bank a few years ago, all these things. But when you come in and start bailing people out, that's when the learning stops. It's just the brain shuts off. There's no learning that has to be done. And now it's just like, okay, someone took the losses somewhere. The currency expands. Everyone takes the loss through inflation. Prices go up. I mean, again, people can, on a day-to-day basis, it doesn't look like that much at times. Some people are really struggling. Some people just kind of live with it and they get used to it. Other people not struggling at all. Okay, great. But when you zoom out and look 5 years ago or 10 years ago, just look what the prices were. And then you realize, oh my gosh, that was the consequence of bailouts and these wars and all these things that are constantly going on and expanding the currency supply. more government programs, more omnibus, massive spending bills, like all these different things, this chaos that we continually let happen makes everything in our life get more expensive through the currency expanding, and our standard of living goes down slowly over time. And that's why it's hard to see, because it happens slowly over time. It's not like punching in the face every single day necessarily. So that to me could be this massive lesson. Saylor's spot on. Elon is right, generally speaking, just directionally correct. I don't believe in the universal basic income thing. And I know good friends, Nolan Bauerle, has his great Bitcoin YouTube show. I know he's like, hey, we're going to have it. We need to have it. I think we need learning. I just think we need learning, and we need to bridge this gap on our own. And that's where I don't believe universal basic income is good, because it detracts from all the work that I've done in my life, all the work you've done in your life, all this work. I could have been going to the bar the whole time. I could have been doing a bunch of shenanigans, but I chose not to. We chose not to. We chose to run Bitcoin podcast, study, work, do these other things. And then now you're basically stripping that away from all of us. And then you're just giving it to other people. And now they don't get to learn. So it's not even like, I'm mad about like, oh, you're stealing something from me necessarily. You're stealing something from other people, because now they don't get to learn, and they don't get to see it and change themselves and grow and become a higher level person, basically. And that's the thing that's really detrimental to our society. And we're just now, again, for turning all these things, we've gotten to this point where so much that's been layered on top of each other, where there's been lack of learning, stunted growth. And now we just have like this atrophying. I just saw something the other day of the IQ level of humans is like basically peaking right now. And it's like, well, why is that? What are we doing? We should be in this place where you have abundance and scarce money, where people are free to go out and expand their IQ, expand their knowledge, expand their creativity, and do all these things. But we have government artificially coming in and basically stripping that from us, and central banks and the banking cartel doing that, where they're stripping all that learning, that growth, the potential. And this is, again, kind of like not an anecdotal thing, but something that people could probably look into a little bit. I've meant to look into this over the last few weeks, because I've used this analogy a few times. But if you look at like the 1800s, when America generally had the large industrial growth and sound money, free banking, things of that nature, you had a lot of invention. You had a lot of entrepreneurial growth. You had a lot of just explosion in that industrial revolution. But the last 100 years, and it really is, especially since 1971, obviously with the Federal Reserve coming in, and then Bretton Woods coming, and then 1971 and 64, the money being taken out of the currency of the dollar, basically, you had this world where we just had iteration. We haven't had an explosion in invention. We don't have the Jetsons age. We don't have all these things that we could have had, decades ago, because we just have better mousetraps. It's just like we've been like mired in this fiat goo for so long, and on the hamster wheel for so long, that we can't go invent. We can't go be creative. We're just stuck at jobs we hate. We're arguing with neighbors. We don't even know our neighbors, like we mentioned. So we're in this world where we need to rid ourselves of that goo, that hamster wheel that's keeping us there, that endless currency printer that keeps us on that wheel, so that we can't go be creative. We can't go spend time with family. We can't go sit with our son or our daughter and make art with them, or build a house, raise a barn, things that people used to do all over the place, build community together, go to church, humble ourselves, get on our knees and say, hey, I'm not worthy. I'm a sinner. Like, I'm not perfect. The world is bigger than I am. And that's the world we're in. We think we are gods, and we think we know more. We think we're going to be better than we are the deity. And now we're about to live through the consequences of it. And I hope and pray that we can quickly realize that there are better ways to do this, and the productivity gains can come back to all of us, instead of just a few people at the top, spewing the currency violently into the air.
That's man, that was interesting. If you think about UBI, so like I'm currently writing about that. I'm really interested in how it will play out, but I think because of Bitcoin and AI, we will have, for individuals, two different paths that they can go down to. They can go down the freedom path, the path where you create, you use, you leverage AI, you save, you leverage Bitcoin. With leverage Bitcoin, I don't mean credit, it's just like using it in a good way. Or you go down the UBI hell, the dependency on governments. Because I don't think, maybe very far down the line, but I don't think it will come anytime soon that UBI will be a good thing. Because to a certain extent, we already have UBI. In Austria, for example, if you lose your job, you get money from the government. It's not directly UBI, but you get income from the government if you lose your job, and this is quite substantial. Like it's not nothing. It can be like a good amount. I think the upper limit is like 2,500 euros, which is about $3,000 a month. That's not just a small subsidy. That's like a solid salary for a person. Obviously, you have to work for certain years beforehand. You have to do what they're saying. You can't go out of the country. Like there's all those things. Yeah. And I think that's exactly the point. Like UBI, if you know a young person and you're like, oh yeah, UBI, that sounds amazing. No, that is the opposite of amazing. You get money for doing nothing, but that money is a dependency, a 100% dependency on the government. And so that's why I say UBI hell. It's not like you will get a UBI, you will live in your best life, you will have amazing things. No, you will have UBI, you will be dependent 100% on the state. So what you're essentially trading in is your freedom. And I don't think you want that. I don't think, even if you think you want that, you really want that if you are living in that world. And so you either have the choice of like leveraging AI and using Bitcoin, or you will end up long-term in like UBI hell. I personally think it will happen, especially in like the communist and socialist countries that I'm living in Europe. So that might be happening sooner than it's happening in America. But I don't know. I don't see any other way around. Like there will be a lot of people that probably have a hard time adapting to AI and Bitcoin, because AI is a bigger technology shift than like a tractor or, I don't know, even the internet. Yep. Because the AI can do a lot more, and it like elevates human labor a lot more. So I'm curious how you think about that, but it's like, don't rely on UBI. That's a horrible thought to have.
I couldn't agree more, Robin. And so we just laid out, and I ranted about what should happen in essence, and you did too in essence, right? Like these are the things from first principles thinking that should happen. Now, yes, let's talk about what probably will happen, which is, we'll probably go down the UBI route. And if you choose to go down that route and you don't put your wealth and time and energy into Bitcoin, you are going to get poorer and poorer. You're going to lose even harder. You will be in the cage. You have less and less freedom. And that's a destruction, death, and despair is the end game of that all the time. We just saw it with Spirit Airlines go down, this past week. And that's government. I believe there was a merger. I don't have all the facts, so I was trying to look this up earlier today, but as you know, I was running a little behind. But I believe they were trying to do a merger. They're trying to do something, and I believe it was Elizabeth Warren with JetBlue or whatever. Elizabeth Warren. They're stopping it here in America because of antitrust laws and monopoly. Like, we got to save the little guy and all that stuff. Well, cutscene. Now 14,000 people, whatever, don't have their jobs because of Spirit Airlines. The baggage handler, the pilots, the people stranded flights now the average person can't afford a flight in America, or people on maybe the lower economic status, because Spirit Airlines is gone now because of communist Marxist socialist policies of, I'm here for the little guy, vote for me because I'm sympathetic to the little guy, acting like every other human being just literally doesn't care about humans, which, like, right there alone, it's like, whoa, like, stop for a second, zoom out. Do you really believe that 80 million people, your neighbors in this country, don't believe or care about human beings? Like, that on its surface, idiotic. Well, here we are. And so now, because of your policies of you voting with your emotions and creating policy with your emotion, we now actually have less goods and services in society, which makes all the rest of them go up in price. It's very simple, supply and demand. So now we've hurt ourselves even more. And like you said, I love the way you said that, because you trade that maybe temporary pain or that learning the growth, like we talked about in the first segment, you just married that with, well, now that trade-off is you are stuck in the cage. You now lose your freedom slowly over time because you chose to drink from the chalice of easy money. And now you get all the sin thereafter. You take a bite of the forbidden fruit, the apple of easy money, boom. Now you've got all the sin that comes thereafter. You get all the repercussions, you get all of it. And then you're left looking like, whose fault is it? I don't know who's doing this to me. Well, that's it. So if you don't have Bitcoin, and so then fast forward to, like, if you do have Bitcoin, because these are things that are going to happen. We just said if you do UBI, which we probably will do, because it's going to be the easy route, people are going to be screaming and crying for it. It will happen. And then you'll have Bitcoiners who will probably be blamed for a lot of things going forward as well. So prepare Bitcoiners. You will be looked at at some point by some administration, zone official, some American pressure, whatever. And so as a scapegoat, so prepare accordingly, but will get wealthier and wealthier and wealthier because guess what? What is UBI? And the CBDC is the only thing. It's massive currency printing. You inevitably will get more wealthy over time. The price of it in USD or whatever fiat currency you want to denominate in will continue to go up because they'll have to print through the chaos in order to try to stave off what they're creating more of. So the only escape valve is that itself. Now, the AI just in general too, again, on its face is going to create so much abundance. And this is where, when you zoom out even more, so that's kind of like the medium term, maybe shorter to medium term, you're going to have this, Bitcoiners are going to get wealthier and wealthier and wealthier. And we're going to create freedom cities. We're going to create, Bitcoin citadels and places where people want to come to and be a part of that society. And they're going to learn over time. They're going to see it. And they're going to have a contrast, because even stable coins, it's more of the same. It's just, it's a digitized dollar or whatever, digitized fiat. Well, it's still going to have the contrast of Bitcoin. So you're still going to lose and be part of that old system with stablecoins. Now, I think there are some good, and let's look at things from a positive light, because that's what we like to do here, but it's going to train people on wallets and exchanges. So you're going to have this bridge of people learning with less volatility. If you stay in there forever, you're going to be in the cage. But if you're learning wallets and exchanges because people are scared of Bitcoin's volatility, well, then stablecoins can be a good thing. And I think we'll teach a lot of people those factors there. But then you're still going to have the mirror, the contrast of Bitcoin and seeing your purchasing power, your time and energy escaping in those stablecoins versus Bitcoin. So people will continue learning. It's all pointing toward that. And then in the long run, like Elon Musk, I think Elon Musk is right on. This could be 100 years from now, 1,000 years from now, whatever. But there's a chance that there is no money someday, potentially, in the sense of on a long enough time horizon, you have a world where things are so abundant because of the AI, 3D printing, robotics, nuclear, thorium, all these things. If energy and everything is so abundant, then you might not be paying for anything. And at some point, there might be an area where people aren't using money because it's just work with me here. We can only talk in modern day terms, but like you're walking on the street corner and there's just a nuclear reactor right there, right? Like go with me on some analogies here in the sense of like things are so abundant that it's just like in the streets everywhere. Like these things are just there and they're readily available where there's no need really for a lot of, the trading or bartering with your money or whatever it is. So again, these are things that he mentioned this. There's a thought that I had 5 years ago, and then he just mentioned this in an interview 6 months ago that he said, well, Bitcoin is probably the best thing with the energy money. We need an energy money, but then on a long enough time horizon, we might not have money at all. And that's what I know. I've talked to other Bitcoiners about this. So these are these thoughts where people that can kind of see the patterns and just take things to the logical end conclusion. I know a lot of us Bitcoiners have thought about that, where you're like, this might not be. But again, we have a ways to go from there. But that to me is the pattern. That's what should happen. That's what. And then we talked about what probably will happen, how to prepare for that. Massive currency printing. There's going to be a lot of chaos in all of that. You can sidestep that with Bitcoin and be outside of all that, capture all the currency printing, and then we'll be building freedom citadels, freedom cities, all this on the backside of this, and creating this new world that people will then want to come to. Because I think ultimately, Robin, that's the thing that's going to, it's not going to be voting, obviously, it's not going to be this and that in the old world. It's going to be power projection, so software theory. Also, maybe the Bitcoiner version of it is like, hey, here, Robin and Brandon built this city over here. Hey, we built this over here. And then so the incentive of seeing that power projection or wealth projection or freedom projection will be so great to people that they will say, I want that. Yes, I really want that. And then people then coming over and being a part of that world.
If you live in Europe like I do and want to buy Bitcoin the right way, check out Relai. Relai is a Bitcoin-only platform with no distractions, no shitcoins, just a BTC. It's also the easiest way I've found to do what actually works, buying Bitcoin on a consistent basis. Relai is also self-custodial. They never have the keys to your Bitcoin. No freezing of your assets, no counterparty risk, no rug bullying whatsoever. I have been a long-term fan of Relai, not only because it's incredible, easy to use and very beginner friendly, but also because it just works. If you want to get started with Relai today, click the link down in the pinned comment or in the description. And once you have downloaded the app, type in Robin in the referral code section of the app to save 10% on fees. So set up your DCA Bitcoin plan today with the Relai app and get cheaper Bitcoin if you use code Robin. With Microseed, you can engrave your 12 or 24 word seed phrase, the entire seed phrase, onto a 1-inch small washer. Yes, just one washer. All 24 words on that one washer. You can hide that thing everywhere. And even better, you don't need to buy a new kit every time you have to get a new wallet. You can make unlimited backups because Microseed is not selling the washer. Microseed is selling the device that stamps the washer. So you get the full kit with the device, with the washers, with the hammer, with everything you need to get started today. And you can make with that unlimited amount of backups. Go now to microseed.io. Finally, we have BTC Prague back in 2026. And this year, I'm not only speaking on a panel, but I'm actually going to present an interesting new angle, a perspective, a Bitcoin thesis at BTC Prague this year for the first time ever. I've never done that on any other conference, so this will be a fun one. If you listen to this show on a regular basis, I would love to meet you in Prague this year. It's very high signal, no noise, and Prague is just a freaking amazing city with awesome drinks and a lot of good food. Use code Robin to get 10% off, and if you buy with Bitcoin, you get an additional 5% off your ticket price. I'll see you there in Prague. Make sure to come say hi. There was a lot interesting in there, and I have a thesis around AI and robotics. I think AI and robotics on a long enough time horizon will bring down the cost of producing anything to the cost of electricity. What happens if electricity gets free? Because I think we can live in an energy abundant world where we get so much energy from nuclear reactors, from sun, from wind, like from wherever sources we want. And if we have AI and robotics, plus they're bringing down the cost of producing anything down to the electricity cost, and then the electricity cost goes down to freaking zero, this means production of anything is zero. And with this, what this means is you have a phone that costed nothing to produce. That phone allows you internet access that costs nothing to produce. There you can order a home, a car, and anything you need that also costs nothing to produce.
And you're 3D printing it at your house.
You're 3D printing it, like robots deliver it. Like that shit is crazy. I mean, you already see it with, like, I'm a huge Tesla fan. We already see it with Tesla. They're not driving around. They just got the license in the Netherlands, here in Europe, to have full self-driving that are supervised. Or just like, I think real estate is such an amazing example because building a real estate property, I remember so my mom and dad built our home that we still have in 2000 to like 2002. I was 2 to 4 years old at that time, but I still remember that I was always on the construction side. The whole family came together and built this thing. My mom and dad did not have a lot of money, so we had to like literally build most of it just by ourselves, like building brick by brick and doing the whole thing. Imagine a world where we have AI. You just go on some phone that didn't cost anything to produce, in a chat that doesn't cost anything to like keep on running, and you're like, oh, I want a home. It has to look like that. I need 4 or 5 rooms because I work from home and like this and that. And then you just like, here you go. You have 5 options. Choose one. Like I choose this one. And then like robots literally come here and just build that thing, like 3D printed, and like it's there. The only scarce resource is maybe the land. But if you look at the whole world, land is not that scarce.
Right. Right.
Prime real estate might be scarce, but like the land itself is not that scarce. There's a lot more room for a lot more people. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
And I have only one problem with that, because then we come to the thing where like we have post-money world. But I have one problem with that. I think money will still stick around as a ranking system, the same way it is now a ranking system between other people, because people bought an app that shows you how much money you have because the app costed like thousands of euros. Can you remember like the early app that just like you just buy it? Like, I think it was called I'm Rich app or something like that on the App Store, and it costed like €1,000 or something like that. And so people bought that shit just to show it off on their iPhone, just to show like, see how much money I have. That is had no use case. I mean, a watch that costs like $5,000, $20,000. It makes no sense. You see the phone time. You see the time on the phone. So, like on the post-money world, do you think that like money will always be around as like a ranking system between human beings because people love to compare themselves to the neighbors and like keeping up with the Joneses and stuff like that?
That's a great question. Honestly, whether money is here or not still, my belief is that it goes, and again, this is, Bitcoiners, that we tend to be a little visionary at times, and we tend to, maybe hope or try to will our vision into existence. So, I'll give that caveat. My belief is whether we're here on a long enough time horizon, I do believe that if money goes away or it doesn't, even if it's just like we're on a Bitcoin standard and it's the only thing that exists, I'm under the belief that other things will become much more important to us, because in a fiat world, when it's sprung into existence by a decree, it's a political currency. It breaks multiple commandments by its very existence. Thou shalt not steal, probably being the one of the most famous. It's such a backward system, and you're always trying to get more of it. And it's so abundant, the currency, that the only way to rank yourself basically is the currency itself. However, when you flip this system upside down on its head, I do feel like it reorients the architecture of society in the sense that because there's only so much money, that the scoring actually doesn't become the money, because then it becomes more about how many kids have you had? What's your flock look like? What do your relationships look like? What does the community look like?
What's a flock?
Well, just like the people around you, or it could be an actual flock. Like, yeah. So it could be, what does your farm look like? I guess, right? Like it could be either. But yeah, what does your community look like? What do your neighbors look like? What are the people around you? The relationships you hold dear. Show me the person, or show me your friends. I'll show you what kind of person you are. Like that type of thing. To me, I feel like if you flip the incentives of society upside down on its head, where it's the old saying of, I don't know if it was Jeff Booth, years ago, or I don't know who's saying this is from, but when money becomes abundant, the goods and services are scarce, and when goods and services are scarce, money is generally abundant, right? So to me, I feel like that becomes the ranking system, and because the incentives are flipped upside down on its head in that sense, it could be wrong, obviously. Like even if we're on a gold standard or something like that, I know people, I'm sure, were still counting their gold and whatever, Ebenezer Scrooge, or who knows what. But maybe on a long enough time horizon, we get to that point. Maybe that'd be amazing. I would love to see it. But at least if we can get halfway there, or 20 or 30, 40, 50% there, that'd be a huge win. So again, that to me, Robin, is I think like how I look at it. If the currency is abundant, then people just start power ranking themselves based on who has as much of that currency as possible. Where when there's only so much currency, the money keeps getting more valuable. But then you start, because I think us, the Bitcoin, you don't change Bitcoin, Bitcoin changes you. So hopefully that helps, because I think I'm yeah. Okay.
That's super interesting. Yeah, like you were gone for like a little bit, but I have the local recording, so like it doesn't matter.
Perfect.
Yeah, but it's super interesting. You mentioned before, or like I think 2-3 times already, the fourth turning. And I'm really interested how you look at how we get to that abundant Bitcoin world, because I do think like AI will drive us to a huge abundancy, and then Bitcoin will drive at least the Bitcoiners to huge abundance. I think also the whole world, but at least the Bitcoiners, Bitcoin will drive the abundance. How do you look at how we get to that place from here? Because a lot of the people that believe in the fourth turning also believe that it has to get worse right now before it can get better.
Yeah, great question again. Yeah, I mean, I probably generally talk a lot about things getting worse, probably more than I should. I don't believe it's the only way we get there. I do think we can bridge the gap somehow. I probably put more stock in things getting worse than before it gets better. I know in the backside there's massive abundance and the things we've talked about. And in saying all this, it's not that we're going to live in the Garden of Eden. We're not going to have utopia here on Earth ever. That's just not that's not the design. It's not, we messed that up a long time ago. That was our own doing. We have free will, and Adam and Eve chose a different path. They descended. They chose to believe the evil one. Cain and Abel, it was an abundant time. We had it all, and they chose to go another direction. So even saying, but that shouldn't, no one should be scared about that though. That's the thing. Like that's what makes life. Like if there's no darkness, there's no happiness. If there's no good, or no evil, then there's no good. If there's no, that's what makes life. There's no sadness, there's no joy. And so this is just part of life, and it's what makes life amazing, quite honestly. So I think that it's going to have harder times, just because history has shown us we're going to have harder times in that sense, where we're going to have more war. There's going to be bad things happening. There's going to be famines. There's going to be things that happen that wake people up, because humans just tend to not be people that are going to sit there, do the work on their own, devices and come to this conclusion of like, yes, we need to go a different way. I mean, again, we mentioned the Bible earlier, right? You can open up pretty much every chapter or every book of the Bible, and it's just constant story of they got away from truth, and then they learned a hard lesson. They got away from truth again, and then they learned a hard lesson. They went away from truth again. They went away from God, and now they're learning a hard lesson again. So this has been going on for thousands of years. Things aren't going to change, and that's just part of it. And we have to live through that. It's just kind of our turn. Our number came up, and we have to live through this turning of the fourth turning. But I think that history is unwritten. We have free will, and so or the future is unwritten in the sense of we can still make these choices. We can still go a different direction. We can choose to put ourselves on a Bitcoin standard. We can choose to put our family, the corporations, the companies, or the countries on Bitcoin standards. We can start going a different direction, and I think that that's hopefully where we're going to end up going, and life will become much different in the future. But I do believe that there's going to be hard times, in the sense of my dad always said growing up, that pain is a good teacher. Pain is a good teacher, and humans, we like to learn through pain and touching the stove. And so it's just in our nature. We're curious by nature, and we tend to, we're adventurous. So these are all things we were created with by our creator with, and he knows that. And it's so, but we're going to have, but it doesn't have to be for everyone too. I guess that's the big point, right? Is society going to go through hard times? Yes. Are people going to go through hard times? Yes. But there's also people, Mike Maloney was one of the greatest people I learned from 15, 20 years ago. Big gold and silver guy. We got to hang out with Alan Hibbert a bit. You saw him last week as well, who runs Mike's gold and silver channel now, has almost 1 million subscribers. Alan's a brilliant guy. And he would talk about wealth is never destroyed. It's transferred. It's merely transferred. So if you can understand where the puck is going, if you can see where things are headed, first principles, nature's law, physics, like if you're in Ethereum, your leader, Vitalik Buterin, says, I don't like Bitcoin anymore because it has physics attached to it, basically. Like, I want something where I can create the rules. Well, that sounds a lot like Adam and Eve. That sounds a lot like people that went against God and said, I don't really care for truth. I want my truth. It sounds a lot like Lucifer, the angel who said, you know what, God, you're going the wrong way. I know a better way. Well, remind everybody that Lucifer was created by God. So I think God knows probably a little more. And Lucifer thought he was God. And he got banished down to hell, the third of the angels, because they followed him and said, no, I know more. We know more. And it's just this whole process of humbling ourselves, getting back to humbling ourselves, stay humble, stack sats, getting on your hands and knees, saying a prayer, realizing that we're not the center of the universe. No matter what any of us think, we're not. And we're this little speck of dust in this universe. And humans, we continually have problems when we get away from that. So all this to say, we can write a different story for ourselves, for our family, the people right around us, and what we're doing. And we don't have to go through all the crazy times necessarily that everyone else is going to go through, or a lot of people might go through and put themselves through, because the future is unwritten. We have free will. God gave us free will in order to write our own story and to see where we're going to head. Are we going to use our talents, our times, our treasure, our ability appropriately? And are we going to put the work in, or are we going to sit idly by and do nothing? Are we just going to wait for someone else to do the work for us? Are we going to wait for the government to UBI print over this bridge for us and do all these things for us? And so that's where it's fractured. I don't think it's a general like, oh, it's all going to be this or all going to be that. Yes, bad things, wars, things are going to happen, but it doesn't have to happen for everybody. And I'm just hoping and praying that that segment of people that starts waking up to truth and in all these aspects we've been talking about starts waking up faster, so we can stave off more of the decline, I guess we'll say, for more and more of people.
Bitcoin already had so many Lucifers. I never thought about that comparison. It's just when he said it, like, in the third of the angels that went with him. I mean, the whole Roger Ver thing, like, there's so many examples in Bitcoin where someone thought he has a solution to Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is, I found a better Bitcoin, and I know
yes,
like, I come to Bitcoin, I found a problem with Bitcoin, and I know how to fix it, and please buy my shitcoin, kind of a thing. It's humbling a lot of people. But I also loved what you said, with like, without dark, there is no good. And then it's very true. And I think in Bitcoin, we can almost make a comparison to the volatility. With no bear market, there's no bull market. I mean, it's pretty boring if it just goes up over time with a certain percentage. It would be super boring if that's just imagine Bitcoin would just go up like 21% each year, and that's what it does. I mean, it would be a fucking awesome investment, but there would be a lot of problems with people gambling on it and leveraging on it because it's so stable. You cannot have this. But yeah, anyways, I get sidetracked. I loved what you said about like, with no dark there is no good, and there's no bright side, there's no good without the evil.
Yeah. It's the law of polarity, right? And it's, one of the great, either Bob Proctor or Jim Rohn or somebody. I remember 15, 20 years ago when I was playing professional hockey, I was getting into personal development at that time and just trying to expand my mind and really trying to, because my mind wasn't great. Growing up, I was bigger than everyone generally. I was like this size. I mean, my size, but I was thicker. Like I was a big kid growing up, but I was like this size probably when I was like 12 or 13 or, whatever, like early on. And so I was a really good player, but I didn't have to develop every single skill that maybe someone else did that was smaller, because they had to operate a certain different way. They didn't have the size, so they had to learn some different skills. And so my mindset was probably one of those things where I didn't have to develop my mind like maybe some of the other kids did growing up, because I could kind of power my way through things and just, go through the wall, so to speak. And so once I got older, I started getting into the mind more, and you just start realizing, man, I really, really, really wish I would have been into this more as a kid growing up. So it's something I, try to instill in my kids, and learning some of these guys, just, some of the great, all-time guys, Napoleon Hills all the way up to people nowadays. But, that to me was the law of polarity. Was just one of those lessons, one of those things where it's the yin and the yang. You can't have the good without the bad. And so just, learning that stuff, and probably the half glass full too, right? All this stuff, they all kinds of goes together. Like, how do you see life? How are you looking at life? Yes. Are we going to go through bad times? Of course, but just like every decade, Jim Rohn always used to say, I remember like 40 years ago, he gave this talk, and he's like, yeah, people flew me in, and I did know a lot of, people. So they flew me in. I was giving all these talks already, and this big board of a Fortune 500 company. And they're like, Mr. Rohn, like, we had you in here because, it's 1980 or whatever at the time. And they're like, we want to know what the 80s are going to be like. Like, you seem to be the man that has all the knowledge. And he was like, gentlemen, he's like, I can tell you, I do know a lot of amazing people, and I can tell you what the 80s are going to be like. He's like, just sat there and just kind of paused. Everyone's kind of like, leaning in. He's like, it's gonna be a lot like the 70s. He's like, it's gonna be a lot of chaos mixed with opportunity. It's just like so simple. And like, as humans, we tend to we tend to just overcomplicate everything. We tend to, Occam's razor. We tend to get out over our skis. We tend to miss the fact that the simplest answer is almost always the right answer. And I don't know if it's government run schooling. I don't know what it is that gets us so in our own IQ, into our own head, that thinking that things need to be super complicated. I mean, again, we see it with Bitcoin all the time, right? It's people, it's an IQ, or it's not an IQ test. It's an ego and humility test. That's what Bitcoin is. It's, can you do thousands of hours and that where lessons that you kind of learn over time, that to me is, just some of the big things you kind of take away. And just as life goes on, you start kind of picking these little things up, always searching, always learning, always trying to grow. But again, I think the Jim Rohn story is hilarious, where you start, seeing these guys with this unbelievable wisdom, and you're thinking, dang. And we could stand to do probably even more of it in the Bitcoin community. Definitely in politics, and politicians need a lot of personal development and growth. But you see, those are very linked, though, by the way, too. I think that Bitcoin and personal development world, all that stuff, very linked worlds, actually. And I think of the spiritual world, I think of like Bitcoin, I think of personal development. All these things are like interconnected. It's probably like the hierarchy a little bit in a way. And it's just fascinating. I could talk for days about all those different realms.
Yeah, this is there's definitely a framework to think about all that that is higher than Bitcoin or even personal development. I think if a person starts questioning things, if a person no longer takes things for granted, is humble and critically questioning things that are happening in his life, he naturally comes to like personal development space. He naturally comes to the Bitcoin space, to the AI space. What can I do to improve my productivity? What can I improve to improve my finances? What can I do to improve my looks, my fitness, my longevity, and all of those things? So that's why, for example, health and Bitcoin is so nicely connected, because the same people, there's a big overlap of Bitcoiners that also love health stuff. There is a huge overlap of AI and Bitcoin, because it's like you have to question things. There's a lot of people, I know them, they say like, gosh, that will sound ridiculous to you. I have a very far out family in France, and I visited that, and they had a huge birthday party with like 150 people, almost like a wedding. And there was a guy sitting next to me, and I was just like trying to figure out, who's he, like what is he believing and all of that. And he also asked me, and at that time I worked at an IT security company. I just work for like a small IT security company. And he said, it was like 2 years ago, he said like, oh yeah, like the internet is just a FUD. And I'm like, wait, what? What did you say? And I was like, okay, what do you mean by that? Like, what do you mean? Like the internet is just like,
please unpack that.
Please unpack that. And he's like, yeah, it's a popular, trendy thing right now, but it will not stick around. And I'm like, okay, wait. What do you mean with the internet? like there's a lot of different internets out there, and like grandma also deleted the internet multiple times. So like, what do you define as the internet? And he's like, Facebook and like all of it, and like this and that, like paying online. Like he literally just like went through the list of everything where there's an TCP/IP protocol behind it. And I'm like, fascinating. I did not know that there were people still around that think that. And I kind of forgot the point that I was trying to make, but it's, gosh, what was the point?
We were talking about personal development, like the hierarchy of like spirituality and Bitcoin, and then personal development and how those are.
Yeah, and I wanted to say, like, there will always be a huge number of people that don't think that change actually happens, that like that humans actually don't progress, and it's like there's all of that. They just wanna defend the status quo as it is, no matter what. And I'm a conservative. Yep. Like I like conserving things, and change traditions in general. Change has to be carefully executed. Like change isn't necessarily a good thing, but saying the internet is a FUD, Bitcoin is a FUD, AI is a FUD, that's just blend, like, I didn't know, I was very nice to him, but this is just stupid. I would never tell this in anyone in person. Like, I don't think we should be rude to each other. I was just thinking, like, how should I say something but I don't know. It was a very difficult conversation for me to be disciplined. Yeah. But like there's a lot of people out there have crazy belief, and so you being on the other side of it, you embracing health, embracing Bitcoin, AI, and all the new technologies, and thinking about like what can they do good for my own life, for my family life, and for humanity. And probably the order is the other way around: humanity, family, and yourself. This is a huge stepping stone for your own belief. The most important thing for your Bitcoin journey is not buying Bitcoin, but it's how to keep them. And yes, you have maybe the right tools, but how do you actually go ahead and stick it all together so it's the most secure for you personally? Self-custody is a deeply personalized journey, and the Bitcoin way is helping you exactly finding that correct setup for you personally. They are also helping you with securing your own cybersecurity. And if you want to go one step above all that, you can even get a consultation for a Plan B residency. Go to thebitcoinway.com/Robin and you will get a 30-minute free consultation. I finally and officially mine Bitcoin. This is not just something to stack more Satoshis, but it's most importantly also to support the network. Individual miners are the ones that keep the Bitcoin network decentralized. And by the way, you get KYC free Bitcoin. That's why I use Simple Mining. I get an actual proper Bitcoin miner. They set it up for me. They repair it if it breaks down. And most importantly, they let me choose the pool and even connect my own full node. I'm completely sovereign and I'm completely in control, and I can sign up with Ocean, no account needed. I just give them a Bitcoin address and then there's mining going on. No KYC, nothing. So if you're ready to mine Bitcoin, go to simplemining.io, tell them you come from Robin, and let's mine Bitcoin together.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, you just see like everything, the old paradigms, Bitcoin helps you with so much. I mean, I've over time, I've thought of different things I've changed because of Bitcoin or whatever it might be. But I think of like just the whole systems change. Like we said, the fourth turning, like all the things we kind of talked about today. I think of like Saylor speculative attack on the, like look at him. I mean, it's a great talk about change. He was admittedly, I'm under the belief that he should talk more about his origin story of getting into Bitcoin. I think he might have talked about it at the conference again a little bit. And this is what was making me think about it, one of his talks. But getting into Bitcoin and just in thinking, you know what, I'm done. My company is going, this certain direction is kind of bleeding out or whatever. And then Bitcoin gave him this new lease on life. And that's kind of what it's been for everybody in a way. And whether it's like we are leaving old businesses or we are down in the dumps or whatever the story was, we all kind of have these similar-ish stories in a way. And he was just one of those people where you all of a sudden have this guy that kind of wakes up out of the blue, almost out of the ether, and says, wow, this is life-changing. This is humanity changing. And I want to be a part of this. Not only was I wrong about it initially, I humbled myself. I realized that, you know what, this probably is a really good thing. My company needs it. And then, oh my gosh, I think humanity needs this. Like everyone needs this. It's like this evolution that we all kind of go through of you don't change Bitcoin, Bitcoin changes you over time. I mean, from the biggest guy with the most Bitcoin and all the way down to, the guy with, 0.0001 Bitcoin, or whatever it is. Once you get in, once you pop the old Pringles ad, once you pop, the fun don't stop. And you get into this world of, wow, I'm changing everything in my life. I want to be around to see this transition. I want to make myself healthier. I want to do all these things. I mean, Saylor's out here speculatively attacking the dollar. He's creating AI stuff, putting all these things together, using AI, marrying all these worlds together, literally and figuratively of, hey, we're going to create, products and services or whatever. And we're using it to create actual things that people can invest in, whether it's Stretch or whatever, where we're going to start using this flywheel. And you can only do that in these separate worlds. Like you can't see the old world from the new. I was just talking to a family member the other day, just a side tangent quick, and they were saying about their own family that there was these issues in their family, And they just didn't realize them until they moved away. Once you get off the fiat Titanic and look back at what's happening and see, a lot of people in the Titanic didn't know it was sinking, especially that first, hour or whatever it was, right? They believed the newspaper clippings, they believed the people on the ship and whatever it was, and they're shuffling deck chairs, they're trying to vote, new captain in, which is just like voting in an election, or they're shuffling deck chairs by getting to other assets, thinking, if I just do this, if I move this chair over here, I'll be good. I'll be saved. I'll be the last one in the water. Like, okay, well, you're still going to be in the water. You'll still be 12,000 feet under the water in 3 or 4 hours. And that's what people aren't seeing yet. Most people aren't. The education is unevenly distributed. And once you get in, you see that, you see the wizard behind the curtain, things start changing. And then you turn into Bitcoin podcasters like us, or content educators, or we start investing in Bitcoin companies, like all the things that we've done over time, or all the way up to a Saylor, right? So there's people that are just in the protocol, just buying and stacking, and they're starting to change right now as we speak, all the way up to as Michael Saylor, who has completely changed his life, changed finance forever. All these things that you can't do it inside the old system. What he's doing cannot be done inside that old system. That's why people are like learning, like, what are preferred shares? And like all this, it's like stuff I remember reading about like in a textbook like 15 years ago, like preferred shares, stuff like that. And one of the things he talked about this week, he did the presentation on stage that I just watched like yesterday on YouTube, and he was talking about, look at all the preferred shares. I'm pretty sure it was the preferred shares. He's like, look at all of them. You can't even name them. They're not nameable. They're just acronyms and in these weird jargon, because he said, no one traded them. Like, no one did anything with them. They were just kind of like, we're supposed to have these legally, so here they are. And now like Stretch or whatever it is like so far, it's like, light years exponentially above all the other things. And so everyone's looking around like, but then again, Robin, like I have family members that are like finance bros, and they still don't even know what strategy is. Like I just recently, I was like, oh yeah, strategy. I'm like, what's strategy? I'm like, whoa. Like, you're a finance bro. You're into all this stuff. You're into Wall Street, and you're telling me how great of a trader you are and all this stuff. And I'm asking about strategy, and you don't even know. Like, you don't even have an origin story about strategy. I mean, it's just like, it blows your mind. It's just the uneven distribution of and how early we are as Bitcoiners. And you have this guy out here literally, and I've been joking about this recently too. Sorry, I'm hitting like, you got my mind popping off here. I've been hitting all these things. Just remember when GameStop and AMC, and in the silver squeeze too, not the 1980 silver squeeze, but the one in 2022 or whatever it was, 2023. But you had GameStop and AMC, and those things were like, people are like, getting all that out on Reddit and like, oh yeah, we're short squeezing this. Like, look at this. Like, just imagine when the cool kids figure out you can short squeeze the dollar by buying Bitcoin. Because guess what? There's a guy over there that's doing that. His name's Michael Saylor, and he started strategy, and it's happening. And this is only going to speed up. And you're out here, you have people, again, education just unevenly distributed. They're out here just picking up crumbs. They're like, oh, give me some GameStop. Give me a little bit of that AMC stock. Like, what are we doing? I mean, it's just child's play. And so when people wake up to this, it's game over at that point. And that's where, could bring things full circle. That's where I think you see a lot of like, the Trump family, like it, love it, hate it. Making cartel, fed back and all but the people around him, his sons, these people, the younger generations that understand what's going on, the Scott Bessents, like this team together, seemingly looking like they're putting together, these speculative attacks while also talking the game up of America, because they kind of have to, but they're putting a lot of piping in underneath. That's kind of interesting. I'll just say that maybe that's the best way to say it, where they've got, the Clarity Acts and the Genius Acts, which again, not a fan of stable coins. I'm not get into stable coins. I think it'll do good over time in the sense that it's going to train people on wallets and exchanges. You're still going to have the contrast of Bitcoin. You're still going to see you're losing against Bitcoin, but just trying to be positive and see the positive out of what's actually happening, what's taking place. I was saying earlier, I could not be more bullish about Bitcoin in this time period. Straits of Hormuz coming on, like I think it was $100 million have been gone through the Bitcoin network. I believe I saw through the strait. And then the American military is like, oh yeah, we're running a node. The software thesis basically playing out, wink, wink, because they have to. This is game theory. It's literally game theory where countries getting sanctioned. They're out here saying, okay, we're going to route around it. And then that forces the other countries, the adversarial country or whatever it is, to then get on the network to see what's going on. This out everything they're still back in the and over again like a drone and just banging on the slot machine and thinking that that's going to be their way out, when in reality they're just in the cage like you talked about earlier. They're going to be in this UBI CBDC cage, and we're here banging on the slot machine at the same time saying, hey, just go buy some Bitcoin. You will get wealthier over time by just transferring this money you had at the casino and in altcoins and NFTs and the actual casinos. Instead of putting it into Bitcoin, you could have just done this and then sat back, spent time with your family, and provided more for society, put more into Bitcoin, and you'd be good to go. And because it's guaranteed, the government's going to print absolute, ad infinitum forever and implode the currency eventually, and it will all be sucked into Bitcoin because it's the hardest asset compared to the weakest assets, which are these fiat currencies. So it's just, when you zoom out, you see where the puck is going. Those people, like we said, the fourth turning, they're going to be very well prepared. They're going to be the winners in society going forward. So the story is unwritten. We have free will. We can change where we're going and what we're doing. And it is up to each of us at the end of the day.
There was a lot in there. Really cool.
Sorry, Rob.
Like, man, I have like 5 things that I want to bring up. I have to kind of decide where I want to go with it. Actually, I want to start with one of my favorite examples. This will be, I hope you actually like it. This is the entertaining example. You brought it up, and it's really fun. How can I make this a little bit more beautiful here? Let me put this like that. Yeah. The first lifeboats launched from the Titanic were significantly under capacity, with some launching half empty or less. This is no joke, a true thing. It's really wild to think about, because people didn't believe that the Titanic was actually sinking. And so, for example, Lifeboat 7, which I came to know was actually the first one out, which I don't know how this how this works, but anyways, Lifeboat 7 was the first one out, had the capacity of 65 to 70 people, and launched with 28 people were in a lifeboat that could have saved, I'm really bad in math, but like 32 more people more than it had. And this is crazy. I mean, you could potentially probably fit like 75 people on there if you squeeze together and still don't go under. But this is the absolute, like, people don't get that. And it's the same with Bitcoin. The Bitcoin is the lifeboat right in front of them, and they're like, stick with the euro. Like, what? Like, why the heck would you do that? And so this is, it's one of my favorite examples of showing why people don't get that something is happening before the water is literally at their head's height. Like, only if it's right here, they're like, oh, I guess we're sinking. Like, shit, that's a bad thing, I guess. I was just eating my steak and was dancing on the floor while other people said the boat is sinking. I don't know. This is one of my favorite examples to like highlight how crazy people sometimes are.
It's easily one of my favorite examples, and you can take it so many different ways. There's so many ways to talk about the Titanic and what was happening, whether it's, again, voting on a new captain, like you're voting a new president in, or shuffling the deck chairs, trying to get a new asset class, trying to outrun the speeding train. It's impossible. And people just, we get so myopic and tunnel vision. In hockey, we talk about tunnel vision or telegraphing a pass, which there's not as much hitting in hockey anymore, but when you're telegraphing a pass, you just be staring the guy down. And a quarterback could do it in football or something like that, where you're just eyeing the guy down. And guess what's going to happen? Your guy's going to get blown up. The defender is going to just hammer him. He sees, or he's going to take the puck. He's going to intercept the pass, or whatever, and go the other way with it. And so, for whatever reason, it's hard to see, because a lot of this is a slow trade-off, like you mentioned earlier, the slow slavery. And again, we're being beat over the head, empathetically, we're being beat over the head mercilessly with endless propaganda everywhere. You're being gaslit by the media, telling you you're a psychopath, you're exploiting the system if you do this thing, if you go against everything, if you think a new thought, if you go outside the realm, outside the norm. Government-run schools constantly telling you the same narrative over and over for decades. Pop culture, I mean, it knows no boundaries. And so you're very weird if you're going outside of all that, because the average person has been told all these things everywhere they look, and you kind of just get desensitized to it, and your brain just kind of shuts off after a while. And I look at the American Revolution too, where and that was a group of pretty hardened people, and you're at a place where this is only 3%, a couple percent of people actually grabbed the musket and said, yeah, no more, I'm not doing this. We're done here. And that was vast majority of people still they were indifferent. They didn't care. They were scared. And those were people that came over to the Americas. They were generally pretty hard. Like they were generally pretty hardened people. If you're coming over here in a boat that takes a couple of weeks in a wooden boat. So that's a pretty big example of, I think, where we're headed, in the sense of a couple people, or a couple percent of people are going to write the rules of history. And this is kind of like the Michael Saylor thing. This is like a Donald Trump type of stuff. This is like all the Bitcoiners. There's the people that put the flag in the ground and say, guess what? Now you're all going to route around me. And people just don't like that. It's the fear, uncertainty, the doubt that we fear, and the devil kind of just taking our fear and just kind of the false evidence appearing real, and just saying, oh, it's scary. It's change. It's this and that and blah, blah, blah. And instead of just zooming out and say, let's look at this, let's look at this from a few different angles, a few different lenses. And there's change makers, and they do it. They go ahead. They don't ask permission, which, again, that's what life's about. It's, nation state warfare is just anarchy. There's no like person at the top saying, the guy at the Hunger Games saying, well, this is what each country can do. I mean, they try to, in a way, I guess, here and there, right? With the WEF or UN or Council on Foreign Relations, like all these different things. But it's not like Trump's just showing you soft power or soft war, abstract power versus real power. Real power is a 2,000-pound, JDAM. Real power is an F-22, Raptor. Real power is, hey, I'm going to do this, and we're doing it. Look, hey, the aircraft carrier is right there. Hey, the aircraft carrier is shooting, some planes off the deck. Oh, this destroyer is, launching some, tomahawks off of it. Where abstract power is, hey, this is, we said this guy has power and you better believe it. I mean, the Constitution is abstract power, basically, right? Like the Bitcoin white paper is the Constitution or the Bill of Rights 2.0, and it gives everyone global sovereignty, it gives everyone global property rights, and it's encoded in energy, where the Bill of Rights and Constitution are just pieces of paper. And it only works if you're, number one, on American soil, basically, or number two, even if you're on American soil, it only works if people agree to it and uphold the law. If they actually uphold it and say, no, you can't do that here, and we actually have a justice system that works. So anyway, again, there's a lot there that we could spend days unpacking, but it's just, this is the world that people are going to start waking up to, and it starts now. Am I going to put the work in? Am I going to do the work, the proof of work, in order to define my life going forward? Which direction am I going to go?
I want to spend a little bit more time, just briefly, because I think you have to go really quickly here. But like, I want to spend a little bit time on Saylor and strategy. And okay. I love that you brought this up, because literally, like, it's the first time actually I show my own podcast on my own podcast. But I'll still do it, even though it's like a weird thing to do. This right here is the Saylor interview that I've done. Almost 2 years ago now. Wow. And I asked him at the very end, and I cannot take credit for that. My end routine question is always like, it comes from a previous guest, and he asks to the next guest, yes. Without knowing who the next guest is. I did tell the previous guest that question will come to Michael Saylor, just to like have a good one in there. And she came up with an amazing question. She asked him, what do you have? What is the most valuable thing that you have that you can't buy for money? And I just want to just briefly show you, like maybe 30 seconds, what his answer was, because it was literally the thing that you were saying before. And I love that he's like super consistent with that and still recognizing that. I'll just play it for like a couple of seconds.
Okay.
A mission, right? Right. The Bitcoin mission, right? That's very important to me. The opportunity to make a contribution to the human race by introducing and advocating this new idea. And before Satoshi, I didn't have that. And after Satoshi, I have that. And I'm very grateful for that opportunity. A mission gives life meaning.
I think that he gives a little bit more into like a little bit more into detail. I think later on this video, if they want to check it out, it's like a minute long. But this is this is so cool to see, because he was explaining how he was ready to retire. He's ready to hang it off. He's ready to kind of like say, like the whole retirement plan with Fong Li being the new CEO, that was already there before Bitcoin. Like Fong Li
Wild.
was supposed to be the new CEO of strategy back then, MicroStrategy, before he even put Bitcoin on the balance sheet. At that time, he still thought Bitcoin is a scam. so that, like that, I don't know if this was his belief back then, but he didn't like Bitcoin, just like over exaggerated, I guess, a little bit. But it's like, this is a man that got a new mission and a new drive in his life, and I'm very glad he did. I mean, there's a lot of Saylor haters and a lot of strategy haters now in the Bitcoin community, and that's actually the last point that I want to ask you about, because I think strategy is the most misunderstood trade on planet Earth. The TradFi community has no clue about it because they don't trust Bitcoin, and the Bitcoiners don't trust it because they don't trust an central instance, and they don't trust TradFi. And so I think strategy has such a unique, underestimated ability to kind of fly under the radar and do all the things that they're doing, because the two communities that actually should look at them don't look at them. They are kind of blind out, like, there's no strategy going on, there's nothing going on. And even though now they're getting a little bit more headlines because they soon will have 1 million Bitcoin, I think they will have 1 million Bitcoin by like August, September-ish, already have over 800,000. What is your thesis, your kind of, what is kind of your thesis around strategy and what they will do in the future?
Number one, I think it's good in a way. It's like Bitcoin too, right? Where we all want it to happen overnight, and it plays out naturally the way it should. Probably slowly. Well, not even slow. I shouldn't say slowly, but organically, slower than we want over time. Strategy is gonna be the same type of thing because humans need time to build. If everything changed immediately overnight, as soon as a certain percent of us, change our mind, that would be probably hell. It would probably be mass chaos everywhere all the time. So, as much as we want Bitcoin to happen, it's like, hey, it's this good, it's this great, but I like where same thing in the sense that when there's a lot less noise, you have the bear market stuff, people don't really understand it, people don't get it. It gives you more time to build and to be under the radar and not have people just breathing down your neck and, good or bad, saying, hey, what's going on? So I think overall it's very good for strategy and what's going on. And again, is there a possibility of a 6102 and all these things? Yeah. I mean, there's a possibility of everything in life. There's a possibility you walk down the street and get hit by a bus. But this is what people have said all along. Hey, companies need it. Countries need Bitcoin. And now countries are getting Bitcoin. Companies are getting Bitcoin. So this is going to happen. It's maybe not playing out exactly how we wanted. I think if you ask most Bitcoiners, we wanted it to be, hey, every pleb, 8 billion people get it in their hands first, and then every company starts getting it, and then the countries get it last. Well, okay, that's in a utopia, in a theoretical world, that would be awesome. That's not how game theory plays out. It's not how real life plays out. That's how I wanted it. Again, that's how most Bitcoiners wanted. But now we have people doing stuff and making moves, and at the same time, the relative obscurity, like we said earlier, of the uneven distribution of the knowledge around Bitcoin is giving people the chance, the ability to educate on it, to build products and services all on Bitcoin, the different protocol layers. The talks that Jeff Booth were given last week were amazing with the local AIs, models and the things we were talking about at the beginning of the episode, where the Fediments and the different layer 2s, layer 3s, and the things that are happening are amazing. And they're happening right now in real time. The privacy, all the things are there, all the tools are there, but not every tool and not every layer is ready for 8 billion people on it either. And so that's where it's good that it's happening. And then again, when you zoom out, it took gold hundreds and of years, thousands of years in order to really assert itself over time. And it's only been 17 years for Bitcoin. So even though we have this thing, you discover fire, it still is not going to just blow around Earth all of a sudden and just everyone's going to get fire in 17 years from now. It takes time. It goes peer to peer. It's a peer to peer network. So this person gets it, then that person gets it, and then this person, someone watches, Robin's show today, one person gets it, and the next day, it extrapolates out over time and multiplies over time. And then for strategy's sake, I think we've kind of had this talk back and forth over the last few months of on some of all of our shows we've been doing, right? Where are they a Bitcoin bank? What are they going to be? And again, I know I've probably come more to the side of, hey, they're already a Bitcoin bank. I forget who made that point. I don't know if it was Jor or Forrest or, Walker or one of these guys we've been, talking to over time here, but or Joey from Canadian Bitcoiners, they already are a bank in a way. They have, hey, bring me your cash and we'll give you 11.5%. We'll buy some Bitcoin with it. And so they're already there in a way, even though, Saylor can say, hey, we don't want to be a bank. They're kind of like a proxy bank in a way. And so I think this just plays out over time. I think that thing that's really interesting, Robin, is as this continues over the next 6 months, 12 months, or whatever it is, right? Where does the education get to a point where you have real deposits, real significant amount leaving these other places, leaving these legacy institutions and going to strategy? I mean, I think there's this flywheel and there's this exponential with strategy that's really possible, that where people say that the old guard, the old world, the boomers, the older generations who are scared of Bitcoin volatility and Bitcoin in general, or don't even know about it. Well, guess what? As this plays out for the next year, maybe it's 2 years, and they just see this churning and just going, what happens at that point? Because there's going to be a big capital flight out of this old world that's paying you only 0.5%, 1%, 4%, 5% to, oh no, I want 10, 11, 12%, whatever it ends up being. So that to me is what's going to be fascinating. And there again, does this coincide with Bitcoiners being blamed for things? I mean, again, you could have strategy being blamed for a lot of stuff, like, oh, the banks are losing things, they're going down because of this guy, Michael Saylor. There's a lot of ways that this could go. But I think overall, the speculative attack is what's going to continually, the power projection, the narrative, everything is going to keep shifting, where people are every day keep waking up. And we just have to hope and pray that enough people wake up on the right day at the certain time to fend off and stave off the rabidness of the legacy world and the old world trying to project their venom and their fangs on all of us. But I'm very confident that we will. That's one of the reasons I invested in Bitcoin at the end of the day, was the social layer of Bitcoin. And if the country is trying to go after Michael Saylor or its strategy or whatever it is, I mean, it's going to be wild. So then you have the economic actors, which are Bitcoin holders themselves. You have then you spur on every economic actor, the Bitcoin holder, to then go fight for Bitcoin, go fight for Michael Saylor, go fight for whatever, if someone's coming to attack the network, which is the very incentive of the system, which is another reason why you would invest in that system, because the social layer, but there's many reasons. One's a social layer, but also another reason is because you're incentivized to protect that system and keep it the way it is and make sure your wealth is protected. So the incentive structure is so beautifully put together that's what this finite loop gives us with infinite potential. It's the most remarkable thing. And again, we could talk for hours about this, but I think there's a lot of good things coming for Saylor, Bitcoiners in general, and freedom all over the place. Doesn't mean there's not gonna be rocky roads and we're gonna have to get into the mud, maybe sling it out and fight it out a little bit and throw some fists, but hey, I'm here for it.
I'll join you on the front. Will be fun. I know you will. I have to get some muscles because I saw you, man. Like you have. That's
all right. You're bigger than everybody, so it's
okay. You're good build. Like I'm just tall, so I have to hit the gym more often. Maybe play some hockey. I feel like every hockey player has like those muscles. Maybe it's just the connection to the ice that makes the muscles possible.
Just grounded to the ice.
Grounded to the ice. Thank you so much, man. We have an end routine, as you know, where the previous guest is asking a question for the next guest without knowing who the next guest actually is. And the previous guest asked you the question, will we see a USA Bitbond in 2026?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's coming. I really do. I kind of alluded to that in the show a little bit. I know New Hampshire had something that they're starting to do, obviously. I just, with the groundwork that's being laid with the different acts, the different Genius Acts, all this different stuff, the Clarity Act, things that people have insinuated or kind of alluded to or winked about, the Cynthia Loomises and all this different stuff. I'd be shocked if this doesn't happen. And if it doesn't happen this year, I think it's going to happen in this, Trump administration. But I would probably put on it this year though. I think after the America's 250th celebration in a month or two from now, I think things are really going to turn. And again, this could be me hoping and praying that it does, and very well might be. But I just think we're going to see a lot. I heard the other day, someone that I knew was talking to some people that are connected to the White House, and apparently they're very aware of everything we're talking about, basically, and just saying, oh yeah, like there's going to be a hard pivot coming up, a very economic pivot. Bitcoin has to be much higher, rates have to be much lower, all kinds of stuff. Now, whether it happens or not, who knows? There's a saying in hockey, you can't just throw your sticks on the ice. You got to go play the game. So even though we're better on paper, we have a better skilled team or whatever it is, we're tougher, you still got to play the game. That's the beauty of sports, is anyone can win on any day. And then so we still have to play the game out. We'll see how it goes. But apparently they're very aware of stuff, and their agenda is much more aligned with the Bitcoiner agenda than many might think. And so that's at least what I'm kind of getting when I look at the chess moves over the last handful of months. And then you hear some people that are in the know, and you kind of put things together and like, very interesting. So Bitbond, again, that's going to be, as Bitcoin goes up and just over time and just does its thing. I could see it this year 100%.
Will be a fun year. I think 2026 started off as like a bad year. People are bearish, all of that. But I think it will end very strong, and I think we hit the all-time high. I think we'll have really interesting news coming out there. I think Saylor will buy way more Bitcoin than
hit a million
than you can imagine, like a million, definitely, maybe 1.1, maybe 1.2, something like that. Will be really fun. Thank you so much, Brandon, for being on the podcast.
Thank you, Robin.
For giving us your time and your insights. You're pretty mine for like a little bit more than an hour. This is really fun. Before we let you go, where can people find you, ask you questions, and reach out to you?
Just go to my name, Brandon_Gentile on YouTube. That's where my podcast is, and have all these wonderful guys on as well. I'll have Robin on soon. And Twitter as well. Everything Noster, just Brandon_Gentile is where you can find everything, all the content, podcasts, my thoughts on stuff, everything. So appreciate you so much, brother. It was an absolute blast, and look forward to doing much more of it in the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brandon, for being on the podcast. And also thank you so much for everyone that is watching and listening, for joining us today. As always, I'll be back. This content is for educational and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute financial advice.